Welcome. My name's Kurt, and I'm here in the studio with Jeffrey Dickstein, and he's got some interesting stuff he presented this morning.
There's lots of people out there who don't do the research, and then they come up with these arguments, and the arguments don't hold legal weight. And so when they come into court, they lose, and people think, oh, the judiciary is corrupt. Well, they may be corrupt, they may not be.
How long can the IRS wait? Let's say I stop paying my taxes today.
Yeah.
How long can the IRS wait before they start coming after me?
Well, it's not how long can they wait.
Well, okay, how many years can go by? Is there a statute of limitations as far as how far back they can go? So let's say I go 10 years, 20 years. How far back in that can they go and start saying, okay, from this date forward of these, because we have limits, is there any limits on them? Or can they go back 20 years and say, you haven't paid taxes for 20 years? 20 years of penalties and taxes and interest and the whole shebang.
Yeah, basically the statute of limitations at the criminal side is 6 years. But if you're engaged in fraud, the statute doesn't start running until they discover the fraud.
Well, what if you're just not filing?
Pure not filing is a 3-year statute of limitations.
So for 3 years they can go back.
They go back, yeah, pretty much.
That's a
That's
lot.
failure to file.
For most people, that's a lot. I mean, if you make 25, 30,000, and then taxes and penalties on top of that, that's a lot of money.
Taxes and penalties almost always double, if not triple, the original amount of tax. That's why I don't think that's a real valid way to fight.
Well, I tell people I pay my protection money. I don't want to, I've got a wife and kids, and I don't agree with any of it. But what am I going to do? It's like we were talking in the hall on the way back here, and you have to fight in the system you're given.
Yeah.
You play these games. So if this is the game, okay, well, this is how we'll play the game.
And you have to fight smart, and you have to understand the political ramifications. I mean, here's what happens. People will, at some point in time, hear something about taxes, and they blow it off. Why did they blow it off? Nobody wants to believe, being a patriotic American, that your government's corrupt. That just rubs you the wrong way. Nobody wants to hear it. I see it all the time at the airports when I complain about the TSA lines. People don't want to hear that the government's violating the law, and they get angry at you.
Oh, I've noticed that too.
So you'll hear something about the taxes, and you put it in the back of your mind. You don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, and then you'll hear it again, and then you'll hear it again. And then the IRS comes knocking on your door, and they do something that you know is wrong. Let me give you a perfect example. The guy who got me involved in this worked for ABC Television. He was the chief engineer. And he worked during the day, but at night, at the 11 o'clock news, he had to monitor what was being shown to see if the color registers on the cameras were good. So he bought a real high-powered TV. He only used it for the purpose of doing color registers on the cameras at the studio. He wrote it off as a deduction. The IRS said no. He got upset. He became a tax protester, right? He got me involved. So what happens is you hear it, and then something happens to you, and it comes to life. And what's the first thing you do? You get mad. How can those SOBs do this? How can they do that? They're screwing with me. It gets real personal. So then they do a little bit of research, just enough to get in trouble, right? A little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Then they say, I'm going to show them, I'm going to stop filing. Well, they don't have any defense set aside. They haven't protected their family, and they end up just getting raped with the penalties and the interest. Sometimes they go to jail. They don't have money for the legal defense. They don't have money to pay the fines and penalties, and they end up destroying their lives. In my opinion, that's not the way to win this battle. We're trying to get publicity on the Bill Benson case in front of the Supreme Court. You know what it's like trying to get money from people involved in the tax movement? They don't have any. The IRS has it all.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's sad.
It is sad, and I've been watching it for 30 years, and they do the same thing over and over and over, and more people come up with more and more bogus arguments, and people will spend their money buying the bogus arguments and getting in trouble instead of figuring out what's legitimate and spending their money wisely and protecting themselves.
well, most people don't know. Does every pretty large-sized town have a law library that's open to the public?
Yeah, yeah.
So
County law
it's just
libraries at the courthouse, universities. Yeah.
so it's just a matter of having to learn how to do your own research and actually try and understand how legalese is written. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have to be a lawyer to
No, absolutely
understand?
No.
This?
All a lawyer means is that you paid a lot of money to a university to be brainwashed that the judges decide what the law is. When I was in law school, we never read the Constitution. We read decisions of judges telling us what the Constitution meant.
Well, I've known lawyers, I've had friends over the years, and I've always asked them, I said, here's what my understanding is, but this is what the Constitution says. And they, well, the law says this.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but you know, the supreme law is the Constitution, and it says this, and this is totally contradictory to that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but because you're right. I think they just they.
Well, there is no Constitution anymore. It's just an idle word. It doesn't exist. It's been flushed down the toilet. It doesn't exist. There's no First Amendment. There's no Second Amendment. There's no Fourth Amendment. There's no Fifth Amendment. There's no Sixth Amendment. It just doesn't exist.
So what do you think is the solution? Practical solution.
Practical solution is shows like this, the internet, and raising money to hire a PR firm. You know, people running for office do that. Presidents have campaign managers. They carefully orchestrate the propaganda to sell it to the American people. How the hell does Obama become president, right? Change. Give me a break. What change? But it was sold, right? Well,
it was sold.
Freedom is a.
I think they stole it. They stole it that from Bob the Builder. You know, yes, we can.
We need to educate the people. We need the people to realize that they're being harmed, and they don't have to be harmed. There's something they can do about it. If you go to my website, fightbacknow.us, one of the links is the Benson Tea Party, and I talk about something called Para-Aid. Para-Aid is the People's Alternative Recovery Act. And if we get the courts and the government to recognize the 16th Amendment wasn't ratified and it goes away, everybody gets a 15 to 30% pay raise instantly. So now you're not going to be in foreclosure. You can buy clothes and food for your kids. You can keep, you know, you can work, you can pay your bills. And with that kind of money being spent, the economy is going to expand. Instead of the government's alternative where they go into more debt through the Federal Reserve System and then give AIG $440,000 to throw a party. How has that improved the economy? Who got the money for that? Well, the bankers and the Wall Street dudes who created the bogus derivatives on the useless mortgages that they sucked you into buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving them money doesn't fix anything. The people need the money. Well, they can give it to themselves by not doing the taxes. And I'm not suggesting not filing and not paying at this point in time. That's dangerous. We've already discussed that. But what I'm suggesting is get involved, sign the petition for redress, which is on my website, write letters to your congressman, which you can do from my website, write letters to the media, both local and national, that you can do from my website. We've made it real simple. And get the 16th Amendment to go away, then the income tax goes away. Everybody gets a 15 to 30% pay raise, and then require the government to pass a law that doesn't violate the Constitution.